Kia ora koutou. So I'm back vlogging in my very posh studio, as you can see. So welcome, I am Mark the Demystifier, but today I'm also the Prince of Markness, because Halloween is coming up. And it was a good excuse, not that I really need an excuse, to return to do another episode of a previous series that I started some while ago, as is my wont. So I've got several series on the go, some of which kind of go quiet for a year or two, and then I think of another episode and the series continues. So and I haven't actually been wanting to do this for a while, because some of the things I've been thinking about and some of the study I've done. So ghosties, so I did 3 parts on what are ghosts, and yeah, please have a watch of them. I'll put the link below. I just had a quick re-watch of them because I couldn't remember what I'd said and what I hadn't, and I'm happy with the content. The delivery's not great and the volume's not great, so technically they're not brilliant, but then my videos never are really. But the content is there. I am like a sandwich with the most delicious filling you can imagine, but the cheapest, nastiest, crumbliest, flakiest bread. So, ghosts. So, for those of you watching this for the first time, haven't seen the previous series, I recommend watching it first. It will help make more sense of what I'm talking about, but it's not essential. You can just plunge into this one. What I talked about and what this series will kind of continue, if it does continue to cover, is looking at what we call ghosts and what that really means. From a theoretical perspective, because I don't expect anyone to believe stuff, and I think there are lots and lots of for what we experience as ghost phenomena, there are lots and lots of different explanations. So I've been kind of covering some of those in the previous series, and I've seen that there's quite a few that I haven't actually tackled. I wanted to bring some new material to the table today, but I think there is some scope for some more episodes, because there are loads of theories about what ghosts are. But what I wanted to talk about today, two things in particular. One is I've been watching, which is probably a bad thing, I've been watching lots of YouTube, on YouTube, but they're, like ghost hunty type programs or ghost documentaries, including one called A Haunting, which is it's quite good. I enjoy it for entertainment purposes, they say, but it seems to be almost the same kind of story every time. Different people, different place, and it was supposedly true, but I don't know. But one of the things I've noticed is there seems to be a lot of haunted cellars, and when it's not a haunted cellar, it's a haunted attic, and I want to talk about that. But I also wanted to talk about another explanation for poltergeist phenomena. So what I mean by poltergeist phenomena, that is where things move around, essentially. So poltergeist is German for noisy ghost. Traditionally, people, as I said in the previous video, back in centuries past, people would associate poltergeist phenomena with fairy folk, and there today, and then more recently, people would associate it with ghosts, and then kind of, probably back in the 70s, 80s, when people started getting into, started exploring things like telekinesis and things like that, they started to look at, was there some connection with emotional energy, and there was association with often with a prepubescent or a teenage, usually a girl, and I want to kind of get back into that theory, and just to kind of explore it in a little bit more depth. And I'm going to put a link on this to a video by a bunch of very erudite Jungian analysts who are discussing the subject. Not only are they discussing the subject, but one of them is actually having, so they're all patching in live to, like a video conference. I don't know if it's Teams or Zoom or whatever, but they're all kind of talking together online. And one of them is experiencing poltergeist phenomena live as they're having the discussion. So it's fascinating. So I sort of strongly recommend that. Don't worry if some of the sort of psychological Jungian language goes over the top of your head, but you probably will get the gist of it, because they are kind of explaining it kind of reasonably clearly in reasonably everyday language for the most part. So yeah, so this is kind of nothing new really. This is kind of building on the theory that poltergeist activity can be focused around a person, and that person is essentially the cause. So that's a theory that's been around for a long time. So this, they're looking at it in a Jungian context, which they would do because it's a Jungian channel and they're Jungian analysts, I guess. And they go into a little bit more detail. There's a slightly more detailed theory around this, which is going to take a little bit of explaining because you have to kind of understand a little bit about Jungian theory to make sense of it. So Jung was a disciple of Freud and a close friend of Freud, and was trained as a Freudian psychoanalyst. And they split. They started to differ in terms of their philosophy and their ideas and their beliefs, and they also kind of fell out as friends. Among the mix, really, which is quite interesting, is that psychic phenomena would, and in particular knocking, that was me, by the way, that wasn't me trying to hoax you, knocking would sometimes occur around Jung, and it happened when he was with Freud. Now, a lot of people say that, and I used to believe this, and you'd be very much forgiven for thinking this, that Freud was a great rationalist, and he wasn't at all interested in, he's atheist, wasn't at all interested in religion, the supernatural, or the paranormal. That as they say here in New Zealand, he wouldn't have a bar of it. But actually, I came across something recently which suggested that he wasn't so much of a disbeliever, but it just scared the willies out of him. So he didn't like it, and also he didn't want to get into that really because he thought it might. I think he thought it might kind of diminish his credibility. So, but Jung was fascinated with all that, and explored it really in huge depth. And like I said, weird things happened around Jung, happened when they were together, and I think Freud actually blamed Jung because he thought Jung was doing it on purpose. This knocking that occurred, he was like, stop it, Jung, you're very, very naughty. So Jung went into, both Freud and Jung were very influenced by myths, particularly things like the Greek myths, which are probably the most kind of accessible, most talked about of the day, classical myths. And but one of the things that Jung and the meanings behind those, so like for example, like a lot of things that Freud talks about, like the Oedipus complex, so that's based on the Greek myth of Oedipus Rex. So, but what Jung kind of started to get, he took it even deeper, really. He started to realise that you could look at myths from all different parts of the world, and they would have common elements. And Jung theorised that the reason that these myths have common elements, not that they're based on fact, which is one direction he could have gone in. It was that there is something in the human consciousness that automatically has a kind of like a catalogue or like a dictionary of images and stereotypes, really, which is a word you could use, but he called them archetypes. So if you think of a type and then an archetype, an archetype, if you like. So he kind of had the theory that our unconscious mind was pre-programmed with certain images that automatically kind of resonate with all human beings everywhere, regardless of what culture, regardless of geography, race, anything else. And I'm going to have to leave it there because I've been interrupted, so we're going to make this into a two-parter, but it'll be an exciting new location for the next one because I probably won't be in my deluxe studio. So stay tuned for more on archetypes. And how does all this relate to poltergeist? Well, it does in a very interesting way, so wait for it, it's coming soon. Rangimarie, thank you for watching. Catch you on the other side. This is me switching off the camera in a very